Hi everyone, welcome to Write Your Narrative, a weekly podcast where we're going to be discussing everything street art related happening in South Florida. I'm your host Pascal D from Talking of the Wall. My first guest is my good friend Rico James, who's the director and producer of the documentary Nobody Was Here, The Life of TMNK. TMNK, a.k.a. the Me Nobody Knows, a.k.a. Nobody, was a New York artist who came to the Wynwood art scene in 2011 and quickly became a very productive, incredibly talented and sometimes controversial artist. Wynwood was his playground until he passed away in 2016. In my conversation with Rico James, we're going to be talking about the importance of documenting the ever-changing art scene and preserving the artist's legacy. Rico, thank you so much for being our first guest.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. So, what is your idea of preserving the artist's legacy? How can you, with the work that you did, what is your take on it?
Well, in preserving a legacy of anything, of art, of work, of a person's life, the best thing to do is to try to be as honest as possible, because when you're presenting it honestly, the people who really knew him and interacted with him, family, they'll come to respect what you're doing. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, this is real. And they'll help put it out there and provide you with other things that you might not have access to. So you can do fluff pieces on an artist or totally, hate on an artist or whatever you want to do. But at the end of everything, you have to be honest about the work, because if what happens is if you're not honest about that work, somebody else is going to come behind you and present a totally different story.
Very true. Something might be different than a lot of other people who have done a documentary is you actually started documentary when nobody was still alive.
Right.
So how did you get to know him and to kind of started the project?
Well, he'd met my family actually before he met me. My daughters and my wife met him years ago at the Sagamore during Art Basel when they would always do a brunch, an art brunch.
Correct.
And
yes.
This is actually before he moved to Miami. So they met him there, and they came home, and my kids were like, "Daddy, we met nobody." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then my wife was like, "No, he's an artist, and I like the stuff." And I think he gave them that first day the pink bandanas, the Art Is My Weapon.
Wow,
bandanas. Yeah, exactly. So I think I met him a little after that, and then he and I just started talking, and I could tell off the top that he was like in his artist mode, talking about his artwork and in his character and everything. But I respected that because, some artists, they can't talk about their work, or they're like, "Oh, I let my work speak for itself." And, you couldn't shut him. No, you couldn't shut him up about his work. So I really respected that. And then later on, we would bump into each other here and there. And then he finally moved his studio from Wynwood right down the street from where I lived.
Correct, yes.
So I saw him much more.
And this was the year, 2014,
This is
15?
Yeah, 2014.
14,
probably
yes.
that he moved. Yeah, end of 2013, 2014. And so I would see him, because the park is right there too. So I would go to the park all the time, Legion Park, which is not too far from his studio. And sometimes he would have the little garage door up, and I would see him in there, and we talk. And he went to the same barbershop, so we knew some of the same people. And we just built up a rapport. And again, we'd see each other at the different events here and there. And, it's just I was spending more time at his studio and just loving the body of work that he was coming up with. And by this time, he was kind of a different person. He wasn't that same outgoing person. He had kind of settled down, and he told me that he didn't want to show anymore, really. That's what he said. He's like, "I don't want to show anymore. All I want to do is work. I've done all that. I've been around the world. I've done this, that, and the other. All I want to do is work. That's it. That's all I want to do."
Yeah, but you actually produced a show with him in 2015.
Well, yeah, I did a oh, that's yeah. So
Catalina Hotel, yes.
yeah, so I curated a show just because I kept pestering him about it. I actually knew the guy who owned the hotel, and he had told me he was trying to get him to do a show there, and he didn't want to do it really. And I was just like, what are you doing? You know, you have this great body of work. Why don't you show your stuff? And I'm being a champion. He was like, and finally he was like, all right, fuck it, you do it.
That sounds just like.
And then I was just like, okay. Never curated an art show together before, but I think I know how I'm going to put it together. So I had the pieces. He actually had done a show at the Shelbourne before that. So all his work was at the Shelbourne. So I literally just had to take like a hotel luggage cart, go over to the Shelbourne, and I was wheeling this cart down Collins Avenue to where the other hotel was, and I hung the show. And he didn't want to be there. He's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to Germany.
Oh, Germany, yes.
Yeah. So everyone that was coming, you know, he was promoting the show and putting it out there, like, come see the show. Rico's curating it. And so people would come there and they're like, where's nobody? And I kind of skated. In fact, someone he knew very well flew from Geneva to come to the show.
All right. And
he wasn't there. So it was very interesting. Just the conversations I've had with those pieces, and a lot of them it's interesting to hear different people's perspectives on on their artwork. You know, some of the stuff I knew because I've seen him paint it and I knew what it meant, but to see what their whole minds went to and different interpretations. I had met this one guy who he was in the lobby. He was just staring at this piece, and it was a piece with the kind of female figure with a needle going through the head.
Yeah.
And he was just staring. And I finally, I talked to him. I introduced myself. And I said, do you like this piece? He was like, it really hits home for me. He was just like, because my daughter's a heroin addict.
Yeah.
So for him, that was, that represented the pain of, his daughter going through her addiction. But he just stared and stared at it for a long time. And then I had another group of girls were coming. Oh, you see the X over the I? You know what that means, don't you? And I'm like, no. I do know what it means.
Yeah.
I did know what it means, and I was trying to get it out of her. She was like, you know what that means, and she'd never tell me what she thought.
Oh, she never really tell you. No?
She just kept saying, you know what that means. So I was just like, okay, all right. It's something ominous to you, but I know what it means. So. Yeah, so I curated that show for him in 2015, and then after that, I asked him, what was he doing? He didn't want to do the show. He didn't want to be that person anymore, that showman. He had grown tired of it, really, and I think he felt like he wasn't getting the recognition that he thought he might deserve, or actually he was kind of tired of some of the recognition and seeing that. No matter what it is, it didn't matter because to him, it was about the art. So
totally, yes. He used to say that nobody will be somebody one day. But
right.
He kept on saying it, and really, did it happen? Who knows?
I mean, he did it on from bottom, going around the world just on his mouthpiece and his work. Like he did that. He willed himself to be this global street artist at a very late age in life when he had already had another successful career.
True, very true, yeah.
So to me, just that mere fact was impressive to me because, at the age of 47 years old, you say you want to be a street artist. Everyone's looking at you like, what are you talking about? You're making a good money. You have a big car. You have, nice house, a big house, nice car. What are you talking about? But that was his passion. That's what he wanted to do. And he gambled it all to do that. But in the midst of doing all that and going through it and getting the accolades and traveling and, he started to see that I think that he started to realize he probably could have been an artist without having to put on this big persona and doing all this. So at the end, talking to him, there was like a bit of regret with him. He would tell me that, he wasn't a good husband. He wasn't a great father. This is what he said. This is his, this is what he said to me.
That's how he wrote his narrative.
Yeah. So, but he wanted to make sure that, you know, this art was left and a message to, you know, the world after. And he talked about it long after I'm gone, my stuff is still going to be here. I'm still going to be here. People are going to still talk about it. And he was sending messages to children yet unborn. That's what he would always say.
Yeah. Yes.
And so, you know, I said, well, let me just film you. I just thought he was going through a moment. Let me just film you doing this work. So when we're somewhere, you can show this short film of how the thing progressed. So, and that's how it started out. It started out like as a small project first. Not
just a small project.
Just a small project, just for him to have. And then, but actually, when I started peeling off the layers, and he started trusting me a little bit more and started giving me more information because he saw that I kept showing up. He started trusting me a lot more and started giving me more information. And that's really how it started. Really.
Yeah, I'm sure it's by building that trust that he was able to. He understood that his legacy, since we're talking about this, might be able to go further, to live on, without even knowing that a few years later he would pass away. And
yeah, but he also you know had been through a lot with people BSing him about, you know, offering this and doing this and that for him. So, you know, I'm coming around offering this thing like, hey, let me film you for, you know, I'm not charging you anything. I honestly just really loved his artwork, and I loved his drive, and I loved the freedom that he had when he was doing his work, and he loved the family life that I had. So
I more or less had the same relationship with him because I was absolutely from day one mesmerized by his art. I mean, I loved it. I love how raw it was and different from a lot of other people in Wynwood. And then since I'm a family man, and I used to come down to Wynwood with my son at the time, and
right,
he liked that too because it's something that he was missing here. He was away from his family and some other relationships. So,
what is the first time you did meet him?
I met him in 2012 at Wood Tavern at the time.
Okay.
That was I was talking with Sandro about it. He was a good friend of mine, was a photographer, and he's the one who introduced me to Nobody. And I had the same reaction than your wife when he said, okay, oh, this is Nobody. I said, okay, well, who?
Right.
I had the very same reaction. And then we hit it off right away. He found a piece of plywood on the side at Wood Tavern, started sketching, started painting it. I ended up buying it. And then from there, we went down the street and then recorded the very first interview that you actually used some of the footage in the movie. So, which was definitely something.
Well, that's, you know, you were talking about legacy too. It's, you know, sometimes for street artists, it's hard to contain that legacy because if they're doing stuff up on walls, you know, sometimes buildings are coming down or people are going up over them. And, you know, that piece that was beautiful that you love to see, it could be gone in a week or shit.
Oh, especially in Wynwood, yes.
Yeah, or a day. So it's important for people, you know, Sandro, incredible photographer that would go around and, you know, take pictures of these beautiful pieces, early Wynwood. But, you know, now they're gone. The buildings are gone.
The buildings are
and
gone.
Not only is the art gone, though, the buildings are gone. So it's important for these people these artists to have these pieces, this documentation of their artwork, and that's why I called the movie "Nobody Was Here" because I wanted people to know that, you know, nobody was here. Of course, it's a play on words, but
of course,
I wanted to, you know, let people know that he was here. This was his legacy. This is what he did, and, you know, people, you know, I've had great reactions to it. That's why I continue to do like some of these screenings because, you know, you can look at your stuff all you want and think it's great, but if nobody else thinks it's great or even, you know, interesting, then it doesn't mean anything. So I wanted to definitely show, especially the Wynwood community, this particular piece, and for them to say, okay, am I being honest with it? You know, do you guys think, because you guys were there with his family, you know, talking to his family, okay, am I being honest with it? You know, is this a proper portrayal of him? And his brother has seen it a couple times. His brother has actually flown out and seen it, and he was like, "You've got my brother down to a T." So
yeah, I'm sure from the side that I knew from him, it's really really down to the T. I mean, it's a real, genuine, giving portrait of him. It definitely is something very very nice. So talking about legacy, you definitely did an absolutely incredible job.
no, thank you.
And what's very interesting is after he passed away, you reach out to a few people, but a lot of people starting hearing about the movie,
Right.
and then they came to you, they came forward and offer you some of the footage, some
Right.
of the photos, some of the things from all around the world.
And you.
Yeah, well,
You-
me too. But
you
then
gave me a piece,
Some
an
of
important
these footage, because he was definitely traveling the world and he
Right.
was doing so many things that it's hard to trace everything.
Right.
And it's very hard to trace his art collection or his art pieces, because they are everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're literally
They
all
are
over the globe. Yeah.
all over the globe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I get direct messages from people that hear about the movie, that go to the Instagram movie page, and they DM me and they're like, "Hey, I have his piece," or they'll show me a picture of his piece in the living room, and I send a message back like, "Hey, how did you know him?" They're like, "Well, I didn't know him, but I loved his work. I used to see it online because he was an early adapter of selling online."
It was very very active. Yes.
He did that very early when the internet was still kind of new, and that's the way how he touched people all over the world. So I'll tell you the story that that this real estate broker told me, David. He said that he would come to his office in Wynwood all the time, and he was holding up his phone, and he was on Periscope. So I don't even know if anybody uses Periscope anymore.
No.
But
I think I heard that once or twice.
yeah,
Yes.
so he was talking to these guys somewhere in Spain or London, whatever, and he said he wanted them to see the David's office and show him Wynwood. And so he was talking about how he's communicating with people all over the world. And he said one day these kids came knocking on David's door. And David said, "Hey, can I help you? This is his office door." And he was just like, "Yeah, well, we wanted to see nobody." And he said I think they were from they were from Norway. And he said, "Well, nobody he doesn't work here or live here. How did you know about him?" They're like, "Oh, online. We see his stuff online all the time." And he said
never heard that story.
he was just shocked. So he said he called nobody, and nobody just got on the skateboard and came around to the office.
Always with his skateboard.
And
yes.
they saw him, and they were like, it was like seeing a celebrity. And they were shocked to see him, and he was shocked that they came all this way to Miami and Wynwood to find him.
What an incredible story. That I'd never heard of. That I never heard. Yes.
So I have so many of these stories, but of course, when you're doing a movie, you can only make it so long. I could make a 5-hour movie, but there were some great stories in there, and I left a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. But I wanted to make sure that this movie, it moved along. It wasn't just story after story after story. I tried to build his life from the beginning all the way to the end, and have enough interviews and enough perspectives from everyone to give that balance, that honest balance that I needed for a film.
Yeah, I think you really, really realize something. Yeah, the balance and everything from the story. I mean, we learned so much. I mean, I knew what I knew from Wynwood, but
Right.
everything from the New York and Soho and everything over there, I didn't even know. I didn't even know his first name, his real first name,
Right.
Scott. So, but I was, this movie is definitely going to stay on forever. Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Well, I'm excited that to share his story, and I tell people all the time that, see, look, this story may not be. I mean, he does have some unique things to this story, but there's a lot of artists out there, and you see their stuff every day, but you don't know what their story is. You don't know what their background is. You don't know where they came from, why they put that piece up. So this is just a small glimpse into a lot of artists. So I tell them, like, this is definitely, nobody is definitely the main character. But I've had so many artists come up to me and they say, hey, that, that's how I feel and that's how I felt. And, thank you for doing this and telling, our story. So I want not only artists, but there's so many different perspectives that I wanted to get, especially from the family, because you can say here's this great artist and he's doing this great thing. But, you have people who they just want you to be their dad or their sibling or whatever. And they don't really care about, what you're doing as an artist because they just love you as a person.
True.
So there's always, those different, and I'm sure almost every artist goes through this, especially in Miami where there's artists that are, maybe their parents are from another country and they moved them over to America to be successful.
Yep.
And then they tell them they want to be an artist and they're like, what are you talking about? I didn't move.
Oh, yes.
I didn't move to this country for you to be a starving artist. We didn't sacrifice. We didn't leave the regime for you to come over here and paint things. So there's always that story, man. But that passion is you can't hold it back. And that's what he did for years and years and years. He held back what he really wanted to do. So when he did it, when he decided this is what I'm going to do, he went full force. And that's why you have this over the top person and this, all of these walls that he hit and all the stuff that he did in a short amount of time because he knew
was very active. Yes.
Yeah, he knew he had to make a splash very quickly.
True, very quickly.
And again, it was just it was like a kid walking for the very first time. Once you learn how to walk, and then you get it, and then all of a sudden you're a toddler, and now you can run. You see when a toddler runs, they just run. They don't care what's in their way. They don't care if they're going to fall or whatever. And that's what he did with his art. He was still very, very, even though chronologically he might have been older, with his art, he was still very young. So he was this young toddler as an artist, and he ran and ran and ran and ran. And he fell down a couple times, but he always got up.
Yeah, until the last day.
Yeah.
But that's true that he was so passionate, and that's what you see in his art. It's just like it could be so violent, and it was really sometime ahead of his time with all these portraits that he did with the Trump and everything. Was like, okay, all right, here we are again, and that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was like hard to believe that.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. He was ahead of his time, and he was very, very intuitive. He was very in the news. He knew what was going on. He was really, really aware of his surrounding, of the people around him, and the impact that he was making on people, that his art was making on people. He was very aware of that.
Yeah.
Very, very aware.
Intelligent, incredibly intelligent, and could hold, like you said, he would talk to anybody, so he could hold a conversation with anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
With the intellectual, or, sometimes he would just chat it up with the homeless person on the street. Just talk to them, see how they were doing.
Oh, yeah. He would make himself at the same level as everybody. I mean, he would not bring anyone down. That was not him. He was just like, he was just a real, genuine guy, a real dude, a real homie. Yeah. That's why some people liked him so much in Wynwood, and in the meantime, so many people don't like him. Didn't like him in Wynwood. Well,
but that's the thing. And I had talked to the great artist Peter Tunney, and he was just like, you could be great, but you got to have some people to hate you.
Of course.
You got to have some people to hate you sometimes. So that's, again, and that was him just doing his own thing, and a lot of people not understanding his background, where he came from, his intention. Sometimes his intention was good, sometimes it wasn't. But that's life. You don't get along with everybody.
No, you don't. And then one morning you wake up, and then you just have something, that bothered you the night before, and then you feel like, all right, like being an asshole for the day.
Yeah. But he was also moving. He was also moving in a world that was, much. In a lot of those guys on the street were much younger than him too.
True.
So, for him and the things he did, because I do get artists that come up to me and they say now they understand. They didn't understand it back then when they were younger, in their 20s. And they understand some of the things he did, and even after watching the movie, that it clicks a lot more too. Like, why he kind of retreated, how. So once you learn somebody's background and you learn, what makes them tick, you start to understand and have a little more compassion for people.
Yeah, definitely. That's something. And once again, I say he was very aware of it, and he knew how somehow to kind of manipulate things.
Right.
It really it was.
I mean, he was a marketing genius too, so he knew how to.
Yeah, he probably used his background,
for sure.
Yes, and his work and the way his demeanor and everything. He had a personality. I mean, such a huge personality. It was definitely Wynwood. It totally belonged to Wynwood. He was in Wynwood at the right time. Well, we miss him now.
Wynwood, Miami. Well, for those who are not in Miami, Wynwood is was a very artistic part of town. Still is slightly starting to go through a bit of a gentrification right now. There's
a lot.
It's a place that was just more. It was actually historically just a place of warehouses where it was a Puerto Rican community in Miami.
True. That was called Los San Juan at the time.
Yeah, and they were doing. The factories were producing uniforms for different things, and then when China came into play, and they were making uniforms cheaper over in China, that's what happened to that area. It just went into disarray. And so when you have these big warehouses that are in disarray and, crime and drugs and all that other stuff happens to a neighborhood, some people might see, blight, but, artists saw a live workspace.
Totally affordable, yes.
Affordable live workspace.
Totally affordable, yes.
So what happens? The artists go in the community, they make it cool, they splash some paint on and it makes it hip and a little bit dangerous to go there, but you're cool and you know what's happening. True, and then slowly it starts to build up to now the rents are 5 times what it was when you moved in.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep that topic for another podcast.
But I just want people to have the background.
There's a lot to say, of course.
So
Wynwood is not everybody knows about Wynwood.
Yeah.
Almost if you are in the art in the street art community,
right, most
likely you heard about Wynwood. And I have to say kudos to the gold mine and to the first people who came and put Wynwood on the map.
For sure.
Really, you have to give credit to who deserved that credit. They were not the first one. They were not the only ones.
Right.
But they did put Wynwood on the map.
Right.
Now it's going to be up to us and to all these artists in Wynwood, in Miami, and in South Florida to put Miami on the art map, which is not quite there yet. But there's plenty of people who are working on it. There's some really, really incredible artists, not just street artists, but there's a lot of real talent, and there's some galleries who are pushing and nurturing all these artists. So this is going to be another topic that we're going to discuss in a few weeks. How to curate a show, how to represent a show.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the legacy about an artist, so now how they're going to be presenting the artwork.
Yeah.
Now today we're talking about the movie, but the art is their first legacy. This is how they write their own narrative, their own story. So
this is their documentation. So
totally.
So like I was saying, the wall is getting the walls are getting fewer and fewer in Wynwood. So for street artists, it's great for them to take that and put it on canvas. And putting it out on the street is kind of like your calling card for people to see your art, to know your art, and that's nobody found that out when he was working in New York, because he kind of went the opposite way. He was an artist and then started, was drawing on canvas. He was doing sculptures as well. But then he learned that, if he put his stuff out on the street and people saw it and they connected with it, you can't take home a wall, but if you go around the corner, he's selling it on the canvas.
Yeah.
So it's important for these artists to, street art is great. But I think a lot of artists are learning how to take that street art and put it into different formats, whether it's digital, which, people are doing some incredible things with digital art as well, or on canvas or on merchandise, hats or whatever. And
he was quite good with the merchandising too.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He did a bunch of T-shirts, underwear, name it. I mean, those little cards that he would sell. He was ahead of his time. I mean, or at least he was living with his time. He He knew how to market himself.
Right.
He knew how to do a lot of those tedious things sometimes.
And that's,
it was
that
very, 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 yes.
Yeah, he came from that world, that marketing world. So he knew, how to put stuff out, where to go to make shirts and hats and things like that. So, and again, he mentored a lot of these young artists who saw that and were like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. You don't just have to put it up on a wall or just draw it on a piece of paper. You can put it on a T-shirt, put it on a bandana.
Absolutely.
Put it on a hat. It's still art.
Oh, yes, it's still art.
It's still art.
It's still art.
So I'm excited that this movie is a testament to his artwork and what he wanted, because he wanted his work to last and to provoke conversation, really. And
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and it still is. So we were fortunate enough to show in his hometown in East Orange, New Jersey, and actually got a proclamation from the city of East Orange, New Jersey.
That is so great.
So,
that is definitely
as he got it as an artist, and then, they did put my name in there for the film as well as documenting, his work and his time. So, in his hometown of East Orange, New Jersey, his legacy is cemented right there.
Perfect. Well, this is a great way to kind of end that conversation. But definitely thank you so much, Rico, for your time.
Oh, yeah.
We have a little screening coming up pretty soon.
Yes, April 25th at the historic Lyric Theater in Overtown. We're going to show the film. I'm super excited to show there as well, just because I know he would be over the moon about showing at this historic Lyric Theater where, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, like this theater is where all the premier Black artists played.
Okay.
So I'm
Oh, that's super meaningful. Definitely,
yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, this was the place where all the Black artists went to go perform. Because Miami Beach, people don't know, Miami Beach was a sundown town. So after sundown, if you were Black, you couldn't stay on Miami Beach. So they would come over to Overtown, Muhammad Ali. If you see all the pictures, the old pictures of Muhammad Ali in the 60s in the neighborhood, he was in Overtown, Miami. But he would train.
Very interesting, yes.
But he would train on Miami Beach, but he couldn't stay there.
Oh, yeah.
Same with all the other artists. So they would come to Overtown and they would stay there and they would perform at the Lyric Theater.
All right. So, let's remind everybody the time.
April 25th, 6 p.m. We'll have a reception and 6 to 7, and then we'll show the film at 7, and then a Q&A with me.
All right. So,
Hear me drag on about.
Yeah. All right. We're all going to be there.
All right.
Now let's move on to the last segment of the podcast. I am kind of big on quotation.
Okay.
So I picked a series of 6 different quotes,
Okay.
all related to the art and to the legacy that we talked about it. So if you want to pull one and then see how you react, if you want to read it out loud, if it speaks to you, if it says something.
All right, let's read this one. This one is, loved after death means you were the shit. Hated after death means you were the shit. Forgotten after death, who cares? Everyone will sooner or later, nothing lasts forever. LaShawn Bird. Man, that sums up this film as well. And, nobody would say, they're going to love me when I'm gone. They're going to love me when I'm gone. So loved after death means you were the shit. Yeah, people loved him.
I think so too.
Yeah, and then the other line is hated after death means you were the shit. People still talking. Even if they hate you, they're still talking about you. If you weren't meaningful, if you didn't provoke something, or
you said the right thing. If you were meaningful, you were meaningful. Yes, definitely.
Forgotten after death. Who cares? Everyone, sooner or later, nothing lasts forever. So that particular piece, that line, something always lasts forever to someone. I feel.
Someone,
to someone. Now, to the masses, maybe not. But there is something that lasts forever to someone. His art will be that for people, and they pass away, and they may pass it on to somebody else. And it's important that they see this particular piece. And I'm very happy that now they get to go to the documentary to learn about this particular piece as well. And there's a lot of people in the world who have his pieces.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. The first piece that I bought from him for $100, it was just, and this is a piece of not cardboard, but something that he just
Yeah.
grab a piece and from a dumpster and then painted on it, and then of course I have it, and it's in my wall, and I'm so happy to see it every day. So
well, it's great on that it's on your wall, but some people may have it, it's in the drawer or whatever. But I'm hoping that this particular movie will help people to put it out of their drawer, hang it up on the wall, and look at it and have a new perspective on it and know what they have. That's another thing. I want people to know what they have, because he would walk up to people and just give them pieces sometimes.
oh yes,
And they didn't particularly know who he was at all, but they appreciated the art. They may have gone back to wherever they live, put it away, hopefully they framed it or put it up. But I want this movie to provoke people to, bring out his art and look at it and re-examine it again. So I like that quote.
all right. So well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We want that movie to be seen, to be screened everywhere.
Thank you.
And,
it's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be. All right. Thank you so much again.
All right, buddy.
And we'll see you soon.
All right, Pascal.
All right. Bye-bye.